So who's ready for a little story time about Tesla charging? About 5 months ago, I made this video about what it was like to live with a Tesla Model 3 and not have access to a home charger. More specifically, I live in an apartment building without chargers, and my only source of charging was primarily using superchargers or third-party charging stations. And the idea behind that, what it was like to do, and if you are a prospective owner, should you or should you not go through with getting a Tesla without having a way to charge it at home. You can watch the full video. I will link to up there, of course, and down below. But my general thoughts were that you shouldn't really worry about it as long as you had another method to charge your car. Obviously, charging at home is the most convenient way to charge any type of electric vehicle, not just specifically Teslas, and not having access to that would make your life a little bit more inconvenient, though it's certainly not undoable. And since I've had my car for a little over a year now, I have not charged at home, but primarily at superchargers and, like I said, other third-party charging stations around town, wherever I happen to be. But things are about to change. Maybe. So shortly after I shot and edited and published that video, I noticed that my complex looked to be adding chargers. Looks like a mix of 120 volt and 240 volt outlets available for electric vehicle owners to charge their cars. These are spots, not really special spots. They don't really have any special placement. They're on just a random floor in the building. And there's about 10 or so spots, it looks like, that have access to these different types of electrical outlets. And they're the only ones in the entire complex that have this ability. So of course, being an EV owner myself, I went to management to see if there was a possibility that I could get one of these spots. And I was given the answer, no, not yet at least. I couldn't get any information on pricing or electrical use or what kind of plugs there were that were available or anything like that. They just told me that the spots were already full and I'd have to go on a waiting list to be able to be added. I also learned that the only way that these spots would be up for grabs, so to speak, was if someone's lease was ending. This wasn't a sort of first come, first serve sort of thing. This was someone was to pay for that was to be their spot, and it would only expire when they chose to either give it up or if they moved out. So suffice it to say, it wasn't really going to be up for grabs anytime soon, at least what I thought, and just figured I'd have to wait. Of course, every couple of weeks, every couple of months, it really kind of turned into, I did my due diligence, I checked in with the office, and no one could really give me a firm answer as to where I was on the waiting list, how many people were above me, and when a spot could open up. No one seemed to know, and I just kind of gave up all hope and figured this just wasn't going to happen. I was just going to be out of luck and continue my other charging practices. And then fast forward to a few weeks ago, I just so happened to meet someone in the parking garage by my car that noticed my Model 3, was talking with me about it a little bit, and then mentioned that they had a spot up on the coveted floor of the chargers. They were one of the 10 or so, like I said, spots that had access to a charger. And they told me that they were going to be leaving that spot and they're going to be moving out, and I should definitely contact the office right now to see if I could possibly get in there and get access to this spot when this person was to leave. And they also told me some very interesting information. The price for this spot, and it seemed to not matter whether it was a 120 volt or a 240 volt, was $50 a month. Actually, hold that thought, it's more. After talking to them and seeing what spots were available, I found out that the price has gone up from $50 a month to $75. 75 bucks a month for an EV spot, which is, by all accounts, an absolute ripoff. And when you do the math, it's even a little more insulting. But of course, I need to give some context to all of this. There are other charges and fees that the complex is having to pay back for, leasing out these spots. Obviously, they had to get the electrician in there to wire all these spots. There's general upkeep, maintenance, electrical costs. I know that there are other costs associated with putting those things in, but $50 a month is a lot. A little less of a burn for 240 volts, because at least that way you could get a relatively fast, 30-ish miles per hour charge, but I would in no way ever consider paying that much money for a 120 volt outlet because that's just a trickle charge. It's almost nothing. And unless I did absolutely zero driving at all, which I guess I'm not really doing much lately, but when the world gets back to normal, that is just almost ludicrously stupid to pay that much money to get that little charge. So I decided to do some math and try to run the numbers for myself. And disclaimer, I am no mathematician. I am not even particularly good with numbers, so I might have an error somewhere on here, and if there is an error, I will make a correction down in the comments below. But kind of my ballpark figures, let's just run some estimates and see what this would cost or how much it would cost me myself if I had access to an actual electrical outlet, in this case a 240 volt outlet to charge my Model 3. So my electrical company here in my area of Southern California would be SDG&E, that is San Diego Gas and Electric. So I went on their website, looked into some of their plans, and I found a particular plan that would be applicable to me if I was to own a home in this area. It was kind of a hybrid homeowner electrical plan plus a special EV plan that had varying prices based on the time of day. And sure enough, there's actually a price of 9 cents per kilowatt if you're charging your car between the hours of midnight and I think 6 a.m. on weekdays, and that kind of changes a bit on weekends. So my Standard Range Plus has a 100% battery capacity of 54.5 kilowatts. So taking that into consideration, let's run some numbers based on that capacity. So let's be generous here and say that every night I am charging from 50% to 90% in my car. Not a huge amount of range. Obviously, some days that would be more, some days it would be less, but I think that 40% charge per night is a very generous average to make those costs a little higher than they probably would be in practical use case scenarios. So that 240 volt outlet can push 17.2 kilowatts per hour to my Model 3. So to charge to 90% would take about roughly an hour and a half, let's call it. So let's call that price a little over 11 cents to do that charge every night, which again would probably change based on actual usage, but let's just say I'm doing that rate of charge every day of the month. And let's say I was to do that charge every night of the month for, let's say, 30 days. It cost me a grand total of $3.40 for the entire month, which is not that much. It's a far cry from $75 a month. And let's be a little generous. Let's say some months it was more, some months it was less. Let's say it was $7 a month to charge my Model 3. Even if we did $7 a month for the entire year, that's just a little bit more than what I'd be paying per month to charge my car at the apartment complex. Now, if there is any upside to this, if any, there are two. One is that the spot is month to month, so I could take advantage of it, and if I found that it was not working out or just too expensive, I could forfeit the spot and go back to my regular spot, though I would lose my hierarchy on the list and have to basically give it up and not see it again. And I would not have to pay for the electricity for that spot, so I'd just be paying the $75 for the spot, not for the amount of charge I use it for, so you better believe I would use every drop of electricity I could possibly get to charge the car, but those are the only upsides to this, if any. So running the numbers on this, there is no way to get around the fact that $75 is astronomically expensive to have a spot, just have access to a charger, but this is a classic example of supply and demand. There is more and more demand for these spots in my particular complex, more Model 3s, more electric vehicles. There's a lot of them around here and a very limited supply, only about, like I said, 10 spots. So the complex management can determine how much they choose to charge for those spots, which is an outrageous $75 a month to have access to that spot, so they can kind of set the prices because the demand is so high and the supply is so limited and people are willing to pay that money. These chargers are always full. So this leaves me with a very interesting question. Is it worth it to spend this much money, which I know is a ripoff, just to have that ease of use and that peace of mind knowing my car is always charged? Or am I better off saving the money and going the alternate route? Well, on one hand, it would be, to be quite honest, and for me to be quite frank, very convenient to know my car is always charged, to not have to worry about the charge state, when I have to go charge, where I'm going to have to go charge, how long that charge is going to take. I'll be honest, a lot of my week is shifting things around in my schedule to make sure I have about an hour to go charge my car. Again, it's not the most inconvenient thing in the world, but it is certainly not as convenient at all as just being able to plug it in every day and know it is totally charged, totally good to go, and when I go anywhere for the day, I'm going to be good to go. But I am in a unique spot that I do have access to a supercharger very close to me. And not only do I have access to that charger, but I also, thanks to the incredible people that watch my videos, that means you guys, thank you very much, and through the referral program that Tesla offers, I have more miles than I know what to do with, and I don't ever see myself ever having to pay for supercharging. I know it's a very unique situation I'm in, and I'm very lucky and very thankful to be in that position. So even though supercharging is inconvenient, and there are inconveniences with supercharging, not just scheduling, but sometimes it's full, sometimes spots are broken. I've had issues sometimes charging the car and stuff like that here and there. It is essentially free to me. The only thing it costs me is my time and some inconvenience, and I typically go supercharge once a week. So 4 times a month, I'm actually going to make that trek to the charger, and that usually gets me through the month with enough charge to make my car be able to go anywhere I need to for typical day-to-day stuff. And for the price I would pay to have access to that spot in my apartment, I could almost pay myself to go charge, like pay myself 19 bucks or whatever the math works out to every week to be able to go and take that time to go charge. So like 19 bucks an hour to sit in my car for an hour, do something, and get the car charged up instead of having to pay the fee to the apartment. So that also puts things into perspective, and I don't know. And I wanted to make this video to kind of pull back the curtain a bit and give some numbers and some facts, and to quite frankly ask you guys a question on what you think is worth it. What is an appropriate price, or maybe better than that, what is a price you would be willing to pay to have access to a charger at an apartment building? Or even, I know people pay for access to that at their workplace. I mean, again, there are charges that are incurred by others to get an electrician out there to install these outlets and all that stuff, but let's be honest, 75 bucks a month is quite frankly a ripoff. I am in Southern California. Again, the demand is high, the supply is low, so I understand economics and how that works. But what would you guys be willing to pay for a spot? And what do you guys think about that? And what situation are you in? Do you have access to a reliable charger at an apartment? Is it feasible to own a Model 3 or any kind of electric vehicle and not have access to a charger if you live in an apartment? What would you guys do? I am super curious to hear what you guys have to say. And as my answer would be, I know it's a ripoff, and I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I'm still kind of in talks with them to see if it's even available, because there have been some people parking in the spot that technically shouldn't be. The spot's open, it's not, I'm not sure. And I don't really know what I'm going to do. It's hard for me to justify that price. It is super expensive, but I also think it would be so convenient and almost maybe worth it, at least for a couple of months, just to see how it would play out and to see if it would really be worthwhile. So anyways, I'm going to leave the question to you guys. Do you guys think I should take the spot or not? How much do you think is a fair price to pay? Leave your answers in the comments down below. As always, I appreciate the support, the comments, the likes. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and I appreciate all of you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Robert Rosenfeld, and I'll see you in the next one.